I'd like to welcome you to this mindfulness meditation practice. And this practice is directed towards those of us who find meditation quite challenging. And a big reason for this is simply because the practice normally involves switching off many of the distractions that we have in our lives. We switch off our radios, our televisions. We switch off from the many stimulating conversations that we have, browsing of the internet. And then we begin to discover that what we're left with is pretty much the mind. All the spotlights, they begin to shine on the mind, whereas a few moments ago they were all over the place on all of those different distractions. And many of us also believe meditation is difficult and that we cannot meditate simply because of our definition of meditation, of mindfulness. The word meditation and mindfulness, they are simply words, concepts, and these words, they mean something specific to each and every one of us. We define it in a particular way. And one of the most common definitions of meditation and mindfulness is being in a space where there are no thoughts. And therefore you feel quite peaceful, quite still. And so the moment we begin noticing thoughts that we are thinking, we begin to believe that we are failing in the practice. And so we get rid of these labels such as meditation and mindfulness and simply see this as an opportunity to observe the mind. But the beauty about this practice is that in order to observe the mind at a slightly deeper level, there is a recognition that the mind is a separate entity from the observer. And many of the more challenging emotions that we experience, the frustration, the anger, the sadness, the stress, they usually happen because of the high degree of identification that we currently have with our mind, believing ourselves to be the mind. And our identification with the mind, it feeds the mind energy, which causes it to move faster and faster. If you can imagine a car with your foot on the accelerator, gathering momentum. In this practice, we're simply going to initially learn how to take our foots off the accelerator pedal, and we don't want to slam on the brakes because that makes meditation very uncomfortable. That makes the car skid and lose control. Instead, we step outside of our mind, a little bit like stepping outside of this car. Little risk of your foot hitting the accelerator, and watch as the car begins to slow down. Let's just assume that it's a flat piece of road, because we all know how the mind works. It might put you in a slopey area, but no, this is just a flat piece of road. No foot on the accelerator. We becoming spectators of this moving vehicle. Gradually you will begin noticing how the car slows down from moment to moment until there is identification with the mind again. And what causes us to identify with the mind? It's our judgments of particular thoughts that may be arising in relation to something in our environment. Right now, it might be a body sensation, it might be a sound, and sometimes it's just a particular thought. As we observe our thoughts, some thoughts might be a little bit unpleasant and disturbing. And because we have that judgment that we dislike the thought, we begin to engage with it. And very gradually, before long, we find ourselves sometimes almost instantly inside of the car with our foot back on the accelerator pedal, speeding, and that's why it often feels as though the mind is thinking for itself. Have you ever had those instances where you began with a completely harmless, sometimes even helpful thought, and before you knew it, it transported you into somewhere completely dark and unfamiliar and different? We call that the momentum of the mind. Every experience that you've had up until this moment, right from a few hours ago to some of the more powerful experiences over the past few days, weeks, months, and sometimes as early as our earliest memories will take us, all contributing to the momentum that we find our minds moving at. And in this practice, we will learn how at the earliest stages to slow the momentum of the mind down. And there are very practical, easy steps which I hope you will stay with me in order to hear. And they don't involve sitting quietly in a corner the way you normally believe meditation practices unfold. So welcome to this practice. As for the sitting part of the practice, 15 minutes. That's all you really need, because over time, you will find your whole life becoming a practice. Every piece of music you listen to, every conversation that you have, every time you get inside your car or get on your bicycle or take a walk, the food that you consume and the drink that you will take in, every breath, life will become your practice. But 15 minutes of sitting can help. And if not 15, then 10, and if not 10, then 5, and if not 5, then 2, or even less. But in this practice, I will guide you as to how to begin with those few seconds, and then move on to a few more seconds until we reach that 15-minute mark. And how from that 15-minute mark, where we will practice daily, or as often as we can, even if it's once a week, we will remind ourselves how to initially simply slow the mind's momentum down, so that those few seconds, which will extend into the 15 minutes, will simply feel a little bit more comfortable. And in fact, most of the teachers that I follow, that's all they say we need, 15 minutes of practice. And based on my own experience and what I've listened to from many of my teachers, they speak about the morning as being the easiest time at which to practice. Why the morning? And usually they refer to the earliest part of the morning, just that part of the morning right after you wake up. And that is because of sleep. Sleep is meant to be a very useful tool in our practice. Simply because when we sleep, the momentum within our mind, it begins to slow down. And you might see some truth in it, because right now, for example, today, at this moment, we're all meeting here at about noon, midday. Things have happened during the morning. There have been conversations, there might have been work. And all of that somehow adds to the momentum of the mind. And so when you sit down, the first thing you notice is how active the mind is, because of all that it's picked up. And so these teachers, they refer to the morning as the moment where you will find the mind at its slowest, where there is more space. And sometimes some of you are artists, writers, and you might know this to be true, that it is the earliest hours of the morning that you are perhaps in tune with that creative side the most. And so and then for many of us, we might argue, we might say, no, I don't actually even sleep that well. And so when I sleep, I have many dreams. I'm a very light sleeper. And for this, there is a simple solution: to begin the practice from the night before. Those last few minutes before you go to bed, practicing exactly what we are practicing right now, being present. The same way we use the bell right now to step outside of the past, our conversations. Maybe a few minutes before you get ready for bed. Begin to step away from everything that happened during the day. But that sounds like a lot of effort, doesn't it? Stepping away, pushing against. And so if you don't like pushing against, if you don't like running away from the past, then instead simply step into the present moment. You might be standing, you might be sitting, you might be having a drink. If you're drinking, activate your sense of taste so that you taste the flavors, the essence of whatever it is you may be consuming, even if it's water. You feel its fluidity as it flows down your throat. You feel the smoothness of the roughness of the cup and the glass that you're holding. Its warmth, the coolness of the texture. You activate your skin. And then you begin walking. Most of us, we brush our teeth. We might perhaps wash ourselves or clean ourselves. Every step towards the bathroom, taken in complete presence, in awareness. The mind will drift back into the conversations, back into all of those things that happened prior to it. But you will notice when the mind drifts away, and then you will bring it back into the present moment. You will feel the texture of the carpet or the flooring underneath you, and you can even visualize that now as we speak. Your usual ritual, it's probably quite similar from day to day. You feel the texture of the carpet, the flooring underneath you as you make your way towards that the restroom. Visually, you're noticing everything around you. We spoke about atoms and molecules and the consciousness within it. It can be a game, even if you don't believe it. But you recognize the stillness within the wall, behind the door, within the door, the doorknob, the door handle, the texture, the coolness, the warmth. And then in the bathroom, it becomes incredible because there is the taste of the toothpaste, the smell of soap, the water flowing through the tap, the way in which light sparkles and reflects off the shiny, smooth surfaces of the wash basin and the metals. You're observing, you're listening to the sound of the water flowing. You're tasting the mint within the toothpaste. You're feeling the muscles within your body. Notice you're starting to slow the momentum within your mind down. And you're all done, and then you continue. And then you will notice your mind drifting away back into this, back into that. And many of us, we live with partners, roommates, children, family members. The conversations will happen, the disruptions will happen, but we will witness, oh, this is me talking. This is me saying these words. Ah, that person, my partner, my child is saying those words. But now, there is a recognition after today's practice that even the sounds around us, we are giving meaning to. My voice. Vibrating air molecules formed around my vocal cords. My vocal cords vibrating in a particular way. Traveling, the air molecules traveling through my microphone, becoming frequencies, coming out of your speakers, into your ears. Sounds, nothing else. Sounds, no meaning. And then in the same way, the electrical signals within your brain, they move through your mind, whatever that is. Some teachers refer to it as a field of energy, the mind, a field of energy that can be programmed. And then because you know English, because you are familiar with the English language, you give meaning to every word that I say. And you know this because if I switch to one of the other languages that I know, and you did not understand that language, all you would be hearing would be sounds, devoid of meaning. And so you are giving meaning to every word, every sound that I am making through my vocal cords. And so you begin to become the center of your experience. The people around you may say whatever they would like, they may say. You become the witness. You become the witness of the judgments that arise, of maybe even frustration, maybe even anger, but you're still centered, you're observing, you're witnessing. And then you reach your bed, and visually, you look around your room. Be present, bringing yourself consistently, that being your practice, being present. See and then feel the fabric of your duvet, your blanket, your mattress, the softness, the hardness, transferring your body weight to the mattress. And you lie down, you cover yourself, and then you become aware of the same way in which we used this seated posture that we are in to be present. You begin to explore, even with your eyes closed, what it feels like to be lying down in that posture. What it feels like to be breathing, to be lying down and breathing, the air moving in and then out. And then you notice your thoughts. They might go back into some of those things, those stories that might be bothering you. Bank balances, relationships, work, things you have to do tomorrow. And you notice. You release the judgment along with the thought, and then you bring yourself back, because at a deeper level, you know what's the point thinking about the story? Because being present is helping in my practice. It's going to help me enter into a deeper level of sleep, a deeper level of rest. And in the process, the momentum within my mind will slow down. It won't slow down completely, because this is the first day of my practice. But that's why I call it a practice, because tomorrow it's going to be better, and the day after that it's going to be better and better and better. Minute little improvements from day to day and from moment to moment. And as you progress in your practice, you will find yourself waking up in presence, in awareness, appreciating the comfort of your bed, looking for little things to appreciate. And why do I use the word appreciation so much? There's a story which I always remember between a student and a teacher, where the student asked the teacher about meditation. And the student asked the teacher, when can I stop meditating? When do I know I'm there? I'm there in the sense that I no longer need to meditate. I am at one with whatever it is that is awareness, consciousness, presence. And the teacher said, it's very simple. You begin to appreciate everything around you. You begin to see the beauty in everything around you, in every experience that you have. Irrespective of whether the mind would judge it as good or bad, desirable or not. You will welcome it. You will be at peace with it. You will appreciate it. You will have the ability to understand that it is all changing, constantly moving. Yet grounded in the one part that is consistent, that which we tap into. You may call it awareness, presence, stillness, or simply the present moment. Simply acknowledging that time, that concept called time, it exists only within the mind, with its past, with its stories, with its projected futures, Whereas as we tap into the present moment, we begin to recognize how it is more consistently the present moment. And then it becomes easier. So those first few minutes of waking up, ideally 15 minutes, it will create a completely new momentum within the mind, because in sleep, you drifted underneath your thoughts. You went below thoughts. And that's why it's so easy to get caught up in the stories once we awaken. But when we consciously tap into this witnessing presence, this stillness, this kindness, this wisdom, we are rising above our thoughts. And maybe for the first day, always remind ourselves that this is a practice. We might stay after the 15 minutes of practice. We might stay within this space for maybe 1 hour, maybe even just half an hour before we get caught up in the stories and the internet and the phone messages. But the key is to focus on that half an hour. Wow, today I was able to stay in this zone for half an hour. And congratulate yourself. Be at peace with yourself. And then practice again the next day, or rather that night, going to bed in the same way, in presence, in awareness, sleeping, waking up, 15 minutes of practice. And on the second day, you will notice your ability to stay above your thoughts, perhaps for an hour, or perhaps just 45 minutes. But there is an improvement of 15 minutes. There is an improvement of half an hour. And the measure is not against your gurus or your teachers. You don't compare yourself against Eckhart Tolle or the Buddha or Christ or any of your teachers. You compare yourself against yourself the previous day. And every moment becomes a moment to celebrate, a moment above your thoughts. And pretty soon you will find yourself more consistently within this space of awareness, of presence. And so that's how. And then there will come a time, and I aim for this as well. I don't exist there at this current state in my life, but a space where we simply become aware of every moment, existing in appreciation. And again, appreciation is a word. Each and every one of us is going to give different meaning to this word. But you can call it's a combination of fun, of deep clarity, of friendship, of joy, of flexibility, of well-being. What is well-being? Just knowing that it's always going to work out. Everything's going to be fine. And we know that because every single one of us have been through quite challenging points in our life. In fact, we may even be going through a challenging period in our life right now. But well-being is that knowing that it's going to work out as it always has in the past. And if we are sitting here breathing right now with access to the internet, within these spaces that we have this relative privacy, this relative comfort, this ability to access this practice, it simply means that there is more right in our life than wrong. And that is well-being, the knowing that all is well, feeling full and fun. That feeling of excitement, of passion for every moment, that exhilaration. And many of the teachers, they say try not to use words to describe this, simply because words are so limited in their ability to convey what complete allowing feels like, complete harmony with the present moment feels like.